Welcome to this story, where I honestly share my journey with fear and learning English. This is a real experience, filled with struggles, lessons, and moments that changed everything. For a very long time, English itself was not my problem. Fear was my biggest challenge. Every time I wanted to speak English, my heart beat faster, and my thoughts completely froze. I knew many words and grammar rules, but my mouth refused to express what I knew. I was afraid of making mistakes, and I was deeply afraid of being judged by others. That fear kept me silent in many situations, even when I clearly knew the answer. I could understand English while listening, but speaking felt stressful and overwhelming. Speaking English felt dangerous to me, like stepping into a place where failure was guaranteed. I kept telling myself excuses, saying I needed more time, more words, and more confidence. Deep inside, I knew those were excuses, and fear was the real reason holding me back. I compared myself to fluent speakers, and I felt slow, weak, and far behind them. I believed everyone would laugh at me, and that belief stopped me from even trying. Because of fear, I avoided conversations, and I stayed inside my comfort zone. I watched videos and listened to podcasts, but I rarely practiced speaking out loud. Learning without speaking made my progress slow, frustrating, and extremely discouraging. One day, I realized something important, and that realization changed my entire mindset. Fear was not protecting me from embarrassment. It was stealing my growth and confidence. I finally understood that mistakes were not failure, but a natural part of learning. Every fluent English speaker was once a beginner, confused, nervous, and full of mistakes. They did not become confident suddenly. They improved through daily practice and repetition. That thought gave me hope, and it gave me the courage to start taking small steps. I decided to face my fear, even if my voice was shaking and uncomfortable. I started speaking alone at first, using simple sentences and very basic vocabulary. I practiced every single day, even when it felt awkward, strange, and embarrassing. At the beginning, I made many mistakes, and I felt stupid more than once. But slowly, something changed inside me, and my fear began to lose its power. The more I spoke, the more control I felt over my voice and thoughts. I noticed people were not judging me harshly. They were actually supportive and patient. Some people corrected me politely, and those corrections helped me improve faster. Each small conversation made me stronger, braver, and more confident than before. Fear did not disappear completely, but it stopped controlling my decisions. I learned that courage means acting despite fear, not waiting for fear to disappear. That lesson changed how I learned English and how I saw myself forever. After I took my first steps, I realized that fear grows when you avoid it. Each day I practiced speaking, my fear became weaker, and my confidence slowly grew. I understood that progress does not come from talent, but from repetition and courage. Instead of waiting to feel confident, I chose to act first, and confidence followed later. I stopped expecting perfection, and I allowed myself to sound simple and imperfect. This decision changed everything because it removed pressure from my learning process. I focused on communication, not grammar rules, and that made speaking feel more natural. I reminded myself daily that my goal was progress, not sounding like a native speaker. Little by little, English stopped feeling like a threat and started feeling like a tool. I began using English in small moments, like thinking, reading, and talking to myself. These small habits built familiarity, and familiarity slowly replaced fear with comfort. I learned that consistency is more powerful than motivation, especially on difficult days. Even when I felt tired or discouraged, I showed up and I practiced anyway. Some days were hard and some days felt slow, but I refused to quit. I accepted that learning a language is not linear, and progress comes in waves. Sometimes I felt confident, and sometimes I felt stuck, but I kept moving forward. I stopped comparing my journey to others, and I focused only on my improvement. Comparison used to destroy my motivation, so I replaced it with self-respect and patience. I realized that everyone learns at a different pace, and that is completely normal. The more patient I became with myself, the faster my confidence actually improved. I started celebrating small wins, like finishing a conversation or understanding a joke. These small victories gave me energy, and they reminded me why I started. I learned that fear never fully disappears, but it loses power when you face it. Each time I spoke despite fear, I proved to myself that I was capable. That proof was stronger than any motivation video or inspirational quote. I understood that confidence is built through action, not through thinking alone. Thinking without action kept me stuck for years, and action finally set me free. I stopped overthinking my mistakes and I started learning directly from them. Mistakes became teachers, not enemies, and that mindset accelerated my learning. I noticed my pronunciation improving, and my sentences becoming clearer over time. This improvement did not happen suddenly, but through hundreds of small attempts. I learned that fluency is built slowly through daily exposure and daily effort. There was no magic trick, only discipline, patience, and consistent practice. I also learned to enjoy the process instead of rushing toward an imaginary finish line. Enjoying the journey removed stress and made learning English more enjoyable. When learning became enjoyable, practicing no longer felt like a heavy obligation. I started speaking more freely, without constantly judging myself or my accent. That freedom allowed my personality to show, and speaking felt more natural. I realized that language is about connection, not perfection or flawless grammar. Once I focused on connection, my fear lost even more control over me. I became more confident in conversations, even when I made small mistakes. people responded positively, and that positive feedback reinforced my courage. I learned that most people respect effort, not perfection. This understanding removed a huge mental barrier I had carried for years. I no longer waited for the right moment. I created moments through action. Every conversation became an opportunity, not a test or a judgment. I stopped asking myself, "What if I fail?" and started asking, "What if I grow?" That simple change in thinking transformed my entire learning experience. English became a part of my daily life, not something I feared anymore. Fear no longer decided my actions. I decided my actions consciously. I understood that confidence is not given, it is built step by step. Each brave moment added another brick to my confidence foundation. Over time, that foundation became strong enough to support real fluency. I finally realized that learning English was never about language alone. It was about facing fear, building courage, and trusting myself again. That lesson changed not only my English, but my entire mindset in life. As my confidence grew slowly, I began to understand my fear on a much deeper level. I realized fear was not my enemy, but a signal showing me where growth was waiting. Instead of running away from fear, I started listening to what it was trying to teach me. Fear showed me my weaknesses, but it also showed me exactly where to improve. Once I accepted fear as part of the process, it stopped feeling so heavy and powerful. I learned that fear only controls you when you believe it deserves control. When I stopped fighting fear and started moving with it, everything changed. I no longer waited to feel confident because action became my new source of confidence. Each conversation strengthened my belief that I was capable of learning and improving. I stopped measuring myself by mistakes and started measuring myself by effort. Effort became my new standard, and that standard pushed me forward every day. I realized that improvement happens quietly, often without you noticing at first. One day you struggle to speak, and another day words come out more easily. Those small changes are invisible in the moment, but powerful over time. I learned to trust the process, even when progress felt slow or unclear. Trusting the process removed anxiety and replaced it with calm determination. I stopped rushing fluency and allowed myself to grow at my own pace. This patience reduced pressure, and pressure had been my biggest enemy. Without pressure, my mind felt clearer, and my speech felt more natural. I began thinking in English during simple daily activities without forcing it. English slowly became familiar, like a tool I used instead of a wall I feared. I noticed my listening improving, and my understanding becoming faster and deeper. The more I listened, the more patterns I recognized naturally. Those patterns helped my speaking, without memorizing rules or long explanations. I understood that language lives through exposure, not through perfection. Daily exposure created confidence, and confidence created fluency over time. I stopped being afraid of accents because I accepted my accent as part of me. I realized an accent is proof of effort, not proof of failure. This mindset freed my voice and allowed me to speak without shame. I became more expressive, more relaxed, and more comfortable in conversations. People understood me, and that understanding mattered more than perfect grammar. Communication became my goal, not correctness or approval. Once communication became the focus, fear lost even more power. I noticed my sentences flowing better and pauses feeling less stressful. My brain stopped translating word by word and started responding naturally. This shift did not happen suddenly, but through constant daily practice. I learned that consistency builds confidence, even when motivation disappears. On days I felt tired, I still practiced, even for a few minutes. Those small efforts kept my progress alive, even during difficult moments. I stopped allowing bad days to erase good habits. I understood that one bad day does not destroy progress. Quitting does. This understanding kept me disciplined, even when emotions tried to stop me. I learned to separate feelings from actions, and that was powerful. I acted even when I felt afraid, tired, or uncertain. Each action strengthened my identity as someone who does not give up. That identity became stronger than fear, doubt, or hesitation. I no longer saw myself as someone bad at English. I saw myself as a learner, improving every single day. This shift in identity changed how I spoke, listened, and practiced. Learning became part of who I was, not something I forced myself to do. When learning becomes identity, progress becomes inevitable. I realized fear had taught me discipline, patience, and self-trust. Without fear, I might never have grown this strong mentally. Fear shaped my resilience, and resilience shaped my success. I understood that fear was never the problem, avoiding it was. Facing fear gave me confidence, not only in English, but in life. That confidence spread into other areas, changing how I see challenges. I learned that growth always feels uncomfortable at first. But comfort is temporary, and growth creates lasting strength. English was the beginning, but courage became the real lesson. That lesson continues to guide me every single day. As time passed, I noticed my mindset changing and my relationship with English becoming healthier. I stopped seeing English as a test and started seeing it as a tool for communication. This simple change removed pressure, and pressure had always been my biggest obstacle. When pressure disappeared, my mind became calmer, and my words came out more naturally. I stopped trying to impress people and focused instead on expressing simple ideas clearly. Clarity became more important than complexity, and that made speaking much easier. I learned that simple English spoken confidently is better than perfect English spoken silently. This realization helped me speak more often, without fear of sounding imperfect. I accepted that mistakes would always happen, and I stopped fighting that reality. Once I accepted mistakes, they stopped hurting my confidence. I began to understand that mistakes are signs of effort, not signs of weakness. Each mistake showed me that I was trying, learning, and moving forward. Instead of feeling ashamed, I started feeling proud of my effort. Pride replaced fear, and courage slowly replaced hesitation. I also learned to slow down when speaking and give myself time to think. Speaking slowly helped my pronunciation and reduced stress in conversations. I realized that silence is not failure, but a natural part of thinking. This understanding removed my fear of pauses and made speaking feel more relaxed. I stopped rushing my words and started enjoying the act of speaking itself. Enjoyment changed everything because learning became something I wanted to do. When learning becomes enjoyable, consistency becomes natural and effortless. I practiced English daily, not because I forced myself, but because I wanted progress. Daily practice strengthened my listening, my speaking, and my confidence at the same time. I noticed my brain responding faster and my understanding becoming more automatic. Translating in my head became less frequent and thinking in English became easier. This shift happened slowly, but it changed my experience completely. English stopped feeling foreign and started feeling familiar and accessible. I also learned to expose myself to real English, not only perfect textbook examples. Real conversations taught me expressions, rhythm, and natural sentence flow. Listening to real English helped my brain adapt to different accents and speeds. At first it was difficult, but difficulty was a sign of growth. I reminded myself that struggle means progress, not failure. This mindset kept me motivated, even when things felt challenging. I stopped avoiding difficult content and started facing it with patience. Facing difficulty strengthened my confidence and reduced my fear even more. I realized that confidence grows faster when you challenge yourself gently. I pushed myself slightly every day without overwhelming my mind. Small challenges created steady growth, and steady growth built strong confidence. I also learned the importance of repetition and how powerful it truly is. Repeating simple phrases helped my brain store language naturally. Repetition removed hesitation, and hesitation had always fueled my fear. The more I repeated, the more automatic my responses became. Automatic responses reduced thinking time, and reduced thinking reduced anxiety. I understood that fluency is not speed, but comfort and clarity. Comfort came from practice, not from talent or intelligence. This understanding removed pressure to be special or gifted. I accepted that effort beats talent, especially in language learning. This belief gave me freedom, and freedom made learning enjoyable. I also learned to forgive myself for slow days and bad performances. Forgiveness allowed me to continue, instead of quitting out of frustration. I stopped judging my progress daily and started trusting long-term improvement. Trust replaced doubt, and doubt had been a silent enemy for years. With trust, I became more relaxed, more patient, and more consistent. Consistency created results, even when I could not see them immediately. One day I realized I was speaking without fear and without overthinking. That moment felt unreal, because it was something I once thought impossible. I realized then that fear had lost its control over me completely. English was no longer something I feared, but something I used confidently. That confidence came from discipline, patience, and daily courage. I learned that learning English changed more than my language skills. It changed how I face fear, challenges, and uncertainty in life. English became proof that growth is possible, even when fear feels strong. This journey taught me that fear is not a wall, but a door. And once you walk through that door, everything changes. At this stage of my journey, I finally understood that fear no longer controlled my actions. What once stopped me from speaking now became a reminder of how far I had come. I stopped doubting my ability, and I started trusting the work I did every day. Trust replaced anxiety, and that change made my learning process calmer and clearer. I no longer waited for perfect moments, because progress was built through daily action. Each conversation strengthened my confidence, and each attempt reduced hesitation inside me. I learned that confidence grows slowly through repetition, patience, and consistent effort. Speaking English no longer felt like a test, but like a normal part of my life. I focused on expressing ideas clearly instead of worrying about small mistakes. Clear communication mattered more to me, and that mindset reduced pressure instantly. Pressure disappeared gradually, and my mind started working more naturally. I noticed my sentences flowing better and my pauses feeling more comfortable. Comfort did not mean fluency, but it meant freedom from constant fear. That freedom allowed my personality to appear, and speaking felt more human. I stopped hiding behind silence, and I started participating with confidence. Each interaction became practice, not judgment, and that changed everything. I accepted that forgetting words was normal, and I stopped punishing myself. Self-acceptance replaced self-criticism, and my progress became faster. I learned to enjoy the learning process, instead of rushing toward results. Enjoyment made practice easier, and consistency became natural. I no longer relied on motivation, because habits carried me forward daily. Daily effort built stability, and stability created long-term improvement. I realized that learning English was not about language alone. It was about courage, discipline, and believing in myself again. Facing fear in English taught me how to face fear in life. Confidence spread slowly, influencing my decisions and mindset. I became more willing to try, even when outcomes were uncertain. Fear lost its power, because action became my new response. I understood that growth always feels uncomfortable at first, but discomfort creates strength. and strength creates confidence. English became proof that change is possible with patience. I stopped saying I am afraid and started saying I am learning. That sentence changed my identity, and identity changed my behavior. Words shaped my thoughts, and thoughts shaped my results. I learned that fear survives in silence, but disappears through action. Each time I spoke, fear became smaller and weaker. Eventually, fear faded, and confidence became my new normal. English felt familiar, manageable, and part of my daily life. I was no longer afraid of challenges, because challenges meant growth. Growth became my goal, and progress became my reward. I realized anyone can learn English with courage and consistency. Talent was never required, only effort and patience. My journey proved that fear is temporary, but discipline is powerful. What once controlled me no longer had power over my future. I overcame my fears, and through that process, I learned English.